We also caught up with the Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, Dr. Naledi Pandor's spokesperson, to find out the current situation Dirco is faced with to repatriate the South African citizens from India and abroad. Okay, Lunga, we've just spoken to a South African citizen that's in India, and he's been struggling to come back to South Africa, and he says that he's trying to get through to Dirco and he's not getting any responses. In terms of Dirco's side, can you tell me what's the situation, what's the position in terms of repatriating South African citizens from India, and what's the challenges that you are experiencing at the moment?
Thank you very much, and good afternoon to the listeners of. No, we are aware of the situation of the South Africans that are currently stranded in India. They form part of the South Africans that are stranded abroad. And we are continuing as the Department of International Relations and Cooperation to try to find ways of bringing them back home. So as soon as we have been able to do so, we will advise them on how to get them back home. The challenges are, of course, emanate from the fact that some of the countries that we are talking about have also implemented their own lockdowns, which is making it difficult for the movement of people to areas where they can be fetched by the planes, as well as just non-availability of flights, which means that we have to find other means of trying to bring them back home. So it's something that we are working on as the Department of International Relations and Cooperation, and we hope we will be able to bring back South Africans that are stranded in many parts of the world. When we started with the lockdown, Minister Pandor asked that all missions abroad must register the names of the people that are stranded in those countries. So when we started, we had a number of just about 3,600. And of those, we are pleased that almost 3,500 have been brought back. And we have quite a number of others who came through our land borders. And we are continuing on daily basis to repatriate South Africans who are stranded abroad. Also including discussing with the other countries that are repatriating their citizens from South Africa to bring back South Africans who are stranded. So we are entering into a number of negotiations and discussions that will see South Africans being able to come back. No, as it was announced by the President, all South Africans who are coming from abroad on landing in South Africa, they have to go through a quarantine for 14 days. So that process gets done and agreed to even before they actually board the planes from the countries where they are. That on landing here in South Africa, they would then be taken straight to the quarantine sites and where they will remain for 14 days. This is, of course, to make sure that we protect the South Africans from acquiring or getting the COVID-19 from people who are coming from outside, and make sure that those that are coming from outside are observed before they can be allowed to be with their family.
Okay, and do we have enough quarantine sites at the moment to accommodate the South African citizens coming from abroad?
It will be the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure that can give you a clear picture of the quarantine sites. But it is important to mention that the issue of the repatriation is an issue that gets discussed at the net joints, which is a committee that comprises of many departments, including Public Works, Transport, Department of Health, Dirco, and others that are involved in this COVID-19 committee. So before South Africans are repatriated, all of the steps that needed to be taken and made sure that they are taken, and so the issue of the quarantine really it's not a problem if a plane is known to come to South Africa with the South Africans. Our role as the Department of International Relations is to make sure that South Africans that are stranded abroad register with our missions so that we know who they are and where they are. And then there's Department of Transport that must make sure that people are transported to the quarantine sites. The Department of Public Works that provides the sites, the actual sites. There's Department of Health that must make sure that all the people that arrive are tested. And there's the issue of security and so on. So those are the departments in the main that are involved in that joint.
Okay, so it's like about at least 5 government departments that are involved with this process.
It's not just only 5 departments. There are many others that are playing other parts at the background, but I was just mentioning those that are at the forefront in terms of repatriation.
How much longer do the South African citizens have to wait in India for a response on how far this process is?
Yeah, as I've said, it depends on the discussions we are having and negotiations. All we can do at the moment is to appeal to South Africans in India and many other parts of the world to be patient and also make sure that they have registered with the missions so that as soon as there is an information that would assist them to come back home, we are able to find them. So as soon as we are able to have that information, we'll interact with them and make